I've seen strange things in my life, but nothing prepared me for the morning I found a letter on my doorstep, it in my own handwriting, dated 25 years in the future. That was the moment everything I knew about my life stopped making sense. I held that envelope for a long time, feeling a strange mix of fear and familiarity. Same handwriting, but from a future I hadn't lived. Something inside me whispered that this wasn't just a warning. It was the beginning of a truth I had ignored for years. And everything that happened next started on that quiet morning. You don't expect to open your front door on a quiet morning, still half asleep, and holding a mug of coffee that's gone cold too quickly, and find an envelope resting on your welcome mat, an envelope with your name written in your own handwriting, in ink you haven't used in decades, delivered by no one you saw yet. The moment I picked it up and saw the date in the upper corner reading, March 12, 2045, a date 20 years ahead of the day I was standing in it. A strange shiver rolled through me, like the future had reached backward and tapped me on the shoulder to remind me I wasn't done making mistakes. I stood there, barefoot in the doorway, sunlight crawling slowly across the floorboards like a hesitant guest, staring at that date until my breath thinned. 2045. My hand trembled as I opened the letter, half expecting a joke, a prank, a misunderstanding, anything. But what I found, the handwriting inside was unmistakably mine. The loops, the slant, the way I dotted my I's too close to the next letter. My handwriting. But the message was worse than strange. It was intimate, urgent, and terrifyingly familiar. Robin, if you are reading this, then the timeline is still intact, which means you still have 24 hours to fix the mistake I couldn't. Do not ignore this. Do not doubt it. You already know who I'm talking about. Go to the place where everything changed. You'll understand when you get there. I sank onto the step, the wooden rail pressing into my back as the letter trembled in my hands. You'll understand when you get there. But I didn't. Not even a flicker of recognition. And what mistake? I had made so many in my life that I sometimes joked I needed an assistant just to keep track of them. But I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't a joke. There was something about the tone. Raw, desperate. The kind of tone a man uses only when he knows he has run out of time. And if it really was my handwriting, then it was a tone from a future version of myself, a man who had lived through something unbearable. A man warning me not to repeat whatever broke him. I stood slowly, the quiet morning suddenly feeling too loud, as if every bird, every passing car, every distant sound outside my house had become part of a world that no longer made sense. I read the letter again, searching for hidden meaning, the place where everything changed. What place? Hollywood, New York, the shelter for the cabin in the mountains, my childhood home. Every place in my life held a memory of change, because that's what life does. It shifts beneath your feet before you even realize it's moving. But this letter wasn't vague by accident. If a future me wrote it, then a future me expected I'd know. Except I didn't. I stepped inside, closing the door behind me, and set the letter on the kitchen table. My dog, Milo, trotted over, sniffing my leg, sensing my unease, the way dogs do instinctively, without needing proof. "I know, buddy," I murmured, scratching behind his ears. I wish I understood too. I paced the kitchen, the silence growing heavier. 24 hours, a mistake, a place, someone I already knew, someone important enough that the future version of me risked. What? Sanity, an old man's stubborn ego. I didn't know, but I knew the sensation creeping through me now, that cold tightening in my chest. It was the feeling of a truth I wasn't ready to face. I sat at the table and stared at the letter again. You already know who I'm talking about. That sentence was the worst of all, because the moment I read it again, one name floated up in my mind, unwelcome, heavy as stone. Daniel, my son who died before he learned to shave, my son I lost long before the world lost me. But no, there was no way. I shook my head, pushing the thought away like a flame too close to my skin. The letter didn't say anything about a son. That was just grief talking. Grief always put its hands on the steering wheel whenever you let it. And yet, I whispered, no, it can't be about him. I forced myself to think logically. who was alive now, in my present, who could be in danger, who mattered to me. A short list. The older you get, the shorter the list becomes. I thought of friends I hadn't seen in years, a sister who lived states away, a woman I once loved but let slip through my fingers because I was too young to understand what forever meant. Jokes aside, there weren't many people left whose loss could break me so completely that a future version of myself would write a letter from 20 years ahead. Then a memory hit me so faint, like a whisper caught in the wind, a place where everything changed. Lake Marin, the summer cottage, the last place I saw Daniel alive. My knees buckled under the weight of the revelation. No, I murmured aloud. It can't be that. I hadn't been back to that lake in more than 30 years. Couldn't, wouldn't. My therapist had once told me grief doesn't go away, just changes rooms. Mine had moved into the walls of my body and refused to leave. But the letter said, I'd understand when I got there, and for the first time in years, I wondered what if going back wasn't about reliving the past, but preventing something in the present. I grabbed my coat, the letter, and my keys. The drive would take hours, but something deep inside me whispered that time. Whatever it meant now was not on my side. I stepped out into the late morning light, locked the door behind me, and headed toward the car. But before I reached it, a figure emerged from behind the mailbox. A woman, mid-50s, maybe early 60s, with dark hair streaked with silver and a face that carried the gentle exhaustion of someone who had lived long enough to understand the cost of love. She looked at me with a strange mixture of hope and fear. Robin Williams, she asked softly. I nodded slowly. Can I help you? She exhaled shakily. My name is Helen. She took a step closer. And I think I'm the reason you got that letter. My breath faltered. You know about it. She nodded. I delivered it. Ice crawled across my spine. How did you get it? She swallowed hard, eyes glistening. You gave it to me. 20 years from now. The world tilted. Why? I whispered. Her voice broke. Because you told me it was the only way to save my daughter. The letter slipped from my hand. What daughter? I murmured. Helen, single quotes as eyes filled with tears as she whispered the name, Lila. The name hit me like a memory I didn't own, but somehow recognized. Helen stepped closer, voice trembling. Robin, she's gone missing. And according to the letter you wrote in 2045, you're the last person who ever saw her alive. For the longest moment of my life, I simply stood there holding the letter that had fallen from my hand, watching it flutter on the cold pavement like a wounded bird, while Helen's words, "You're the last person who ever saw her alive," echoed through my skull with the slow, suffocating pressure of a memory that hadn't yet revealed itself. And as she stepped closer with eyes full of grief she hadn't even begun to process, something inside me tightened, not with fear, but with a strange, heavy sense of inevitability, as if this moment had been waiting for me long before I woke up this morning. Long before the letter arrived, long before time itself decided to intertwine my past with her future. Helen's hands trembled as she reached down and picked up the letter, her fingers brushing mine for only a second, but long enough for me to feel how cold she was, how empty her strength had become. Robin, she whispered. I didn't know who else to turn to. I didn't know who else could help me. I took a slow breath. Tell me everything, I said quietly. Start anywhere you need to. Helen swallowed hard. My daughter Lila, she's 21, smart, kind, gentle. She volunteers at the local hospice. She paints. She helps take care of her grandmother. She doesn't disappear. She doesn't run away. And yesterday morning, she was gone. Tears welled in her eyes, but didn't fall. Her room was untouched. Her phone was still on the nightstand. Her coat still in the closet. No struggle, no note, nothing. My heart twisted with a familiar ache, the ache of losing someone without warning. The police, I asked. They searched, she muttered, but without signs of foul play. They're treating it like she left on her own. Her voice cracked, but she didn't. I know she didn't. Helen clenched the letter as if grounding herself. This morning, I found this on my porch. She held up another envelope, nearly identical to mine. Same handwriting, she whispered. Same date, same ink. My breath hitched. What did it say? She unfolded it slowly, her fingers shaking. It said, Helen, He knows where she is. Bring him. The words sank into me like stones in water. And you think that he is me? I whispered. She nodded. The letter said, "You're the last person who ever saw her alive in your future, which means you must have known something found, something 20 years from now." Helen's voice cracked. "And you trusted me with this." She held up my letter again. "You trusted yourself." A strange sensation washed through me, not recognition, not exactly, but the feeling that something buried deep inside me was beginning to thaw. Memories moving beneath layers of ice, cracks forming. "When did she disappear?" I asked. "Yesterday," Helen murmured. "Around dawn." "Yesterday." A chill spread through my chest. "And the letter arrived this morning," I whispered. Helen nodded. "Just like yours." A terrible thought flickered across my mind. 20 years from now. Maybe I was there when she vanished. Maybe I followed her. Maybe I tried to stop something and failed. The letter said I had 24 hours to fix a mistake, and that mistake might be happening right now. I stepped toward my car. "We need to go," I said. "Now." Helen blinked in confusion. "Go where?" I didn't hesitate. "Lake Merin." The moment I said it, Helen's eyes widened. "How do you know about Lake Merin?" I froze. "What?" "That's where she volunteers every Tuesday," Helen whispered. "At the Lakeside Hospice." A shiver ran through me, half fear, half destiny. The lake wasn't just part of my past. It was part of her present, and maybe part of our future. "Get in the car," I murmured. "We don't have much time." The drive took over 2 hours. Helen sat in the passenger seat, gripping the second letter with both hands, like it was the only thing holding her together. Outside the window, the world blurred by, in streaks of winter, light trees bare and skeletal. The sky, pale and heavy, with unshed rain. The radio silent, because I couldn't bear any sound but her breath and my own heartbeat. "Robin," Helen whispered after a long stretch of silence. "Do you remember her? Do you remember seeing her in your future?" I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. "No. What I feel, something, like a shadow of a memory that isn't quite mine yet." "Do you think you wrote the letter?" she asked quietly. "If the handwriting is the same." I exhaled slowly. I think something happened in 2045, something so terrible the future me believed it was worth risking everything to change it. Helen nodded slowly, staring out the window. "Do you think we can?" Her question sat heavy in the car. "I don't know," I said, "but we have to try." When we arrived at the hospice by the lake, a nurse recognized Helen immediately. "Are you here about Leela?" she asked gently. Helen nodded. "Anything?" The nurse shook her head, her expression apologetic. "We checked the grounds again this morning. No sign of her." She hesitated. "There is one thing, though. One of the residents said they saw her last walking toward the South Trail." My breath hitched. "The same trail that leads to the water." The nurse nodded. "Yes." "Why?" "Because that trail was the place where I last saw my son." I didn't say it aloud. Helen looked at me, sensing the shift in my breathing. "Robin, I know that path," I whispered, "all too well." We walked toward the trail together. The wind picked up, cold and sharp, carrying the scent of water and something else, something metallic, like the taste of an old memory rising in my throat. Trees lined the path, their branches weaving overhead like interlocking fingers. The lake shimmered in the distance, still and haunting. "She always took this path after her shifts," Helen murmured. "She said it helped her think." I nodded, remembering the way Daniel used to skip stones along this shoreline, the way his laughter echoed across the water like it belonged to the world. I slowed. "Helen, what would Leela have been thinking about yesterday morning?" She hugged her coat tighter. "She's been overwhelmed lately, worried about the future, about whether she's choosing the right path." Helen's voice cracked. "She reminds me a lot of someone when they're young, trying to save the world but not knowing how." I swallowed hard. "We need to find any clue she may have left behind." Helen nodded and began searching the ground near the start of the trail. Footprints, a broken branch, anything but what I noticed wasn't on the ground. It was on the bench overlooking the lake, a small, folded paper, weighted by a stone. "Helen," I whispered, "over here." She hurried to my side as I picked it up. The handwriting was neat, Familia and Leela S. But the message wasn't addressed to her mother. It was addressed to me. Robin, if you're reading this, then the letter reached you. I don't have much time. The man from the lake trail said you'd come. He said you'd understand. Please, don't let me disappear. Helen gasped. What does that mean? My heart pounded, a storm rising behind my ribs. Someone talked to her. I whispered. Someone knew I'd come. Helen turned pale. I looked around the empty shoreline. Trees, silent witnesses to our fear. And then a memory not mine, but future mess flashed in my mind. A man standing on this shoreline. A man with a cane. A man with a scar on his left cheek. A man saying one sentence over and over. You can't save her, Robin. Not twice. My breath caught. Helen touched my arm. What is it? I swallowed hard. I think, I whispered. Someone already knows what happens next. We followed the trail deeper into the woods. My chest tightened with each step, the air growing colder, denser, as if time itself was beginning to collapse around us. After several minutes, Helen stopped abruptly. Robin, look, there at the edge of the water lay a shoe, a brown suede shoe, still warm, still dry, recently placed. Helen collapsed to her knees, sobbing. It's hers, she whispered. Oh God, it's hers. I crouched beside the shoe, inspecting it carefully, when I noticed footprints leading away from it, not toward the water, but toward a small cabin hidden by trees. A cabin that shouldn't have been there. A cabin I recognized with sickening clarity. My voice broke. No, I whispered. That can't be. Helen grabbed my sleeve. Robin, what is it? The cabin was the same one from my future memory. The one where the man with the cane stood. The one where I had last seen Leela in 2045. Come on, I murmured. We have to move. We approached the cabin slowly. The door was open slightly, creaking in the wind like a whispered warning. Helen clutched my arm so tightly her nails dug into my coat. Inside, the room was dim, dust swirling in thin beams of light. On the table in the center was a lantern, still warm, and beside it, a photograph, a recent one, of Lila. She was sitting on the shoreline, talking to someone just outside the frame. A shadow, tall, holding a cane. Robin, Helen whispered, terrified. Who is that? I stared at the shadow, my heart collapsing into itself, because now I remembered, not fully, but enough. The cane, the scar, the voice, the man from the future warning me. I couldn't save her twice. It was me, older, broken. From 20 years ahead, I staggered backward, gripping the table to steady myself. Helen looked at me in horror. Robin, what are you remembering? My voice trembled. It wasn't someone else who last saw her alive. I lifted the photo with shaking hands. It was me. Helen's lips parted. You. I nodded slowly as the truth finally broke through the surface of my mind. In the future, I tried to save her, but I failed. And I wrote the letters because my voice cracked. Because I thought maybe the younger me could do what the older me couldn't. Helen collapsed into a chair, overwhelmed. Then where is she now? I looked toward the back of the cabin, where a single door stood slightly ajar, leading to the basement. A faint sound drifted through. A voice. Faint. Afraid. Hello. It was Leela. Alive. If you made it all the way to the end of this story, thank you. Some moments in life remind us that the past, the present, and even the future can meet in the same breath, especially when a single act of love or courage has the power to change everything. If this journey stirred a memory inside you, or made you think about someone you once cared for, I'd be honored to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if you'd like to join me for more emotional, nostalgic stories like this one, feel free to subscribe and leave a like. It helps keep these stories alive and helps us stay connected through the moments that matter most. Until next time, take care of yourselves and take care of each other.